Hey, what is going on everybody? It is Rob, aka The Diligent Dev, and if you followed my channel for any amount of time, you know that I love using Vue.js for my projects. So when the team over at Ionic announced that they had finally finished integrating Vue.js with the Ionic Framework, I knew I had to check it out, and I will let you know that I have not been disappointed. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is create a cocktail app. It's going to have 3 tabs. One is going to be for a random cocktail, another one is going to be search by ingredient, and the last one is just going to be a blanket search. We're going to be using the Ionic Framework with Vue.js and the TheCockTailDb API. So let's go ahead and jump over to the computer and get right into it. Okay, so here we are over at the computer. I'm on Ionic Framework's website, and as you can see, they are now featuring that they have their framework in Vue. So what we're going to do is click on Get Started. And if we scroll down here a little bit, you'll see that you can either use the app wizard to generate your app, or you can go ahead and install it manually. Now we're going to be using the app wizard, but if you wanted to install it manually, you would install the CLI. Then you would run Ionic start, the name of your app, and then which template you wanted. There's tabs, blank, and a sidebar template that you can choose from. And then you would cd into your app once it's done creating it and run Ionic serve to see your app in the browser. Now what we're going to do is use their app wizard because I think it's really cool. So what we're going to do is click on Open Wizard. We're going to name our app. I'm just going to name it Ionic Cocktail App. And then I'm going to pick this pink for a color, and then we'll choose an icon, and I'm just going to search for drink, and we're going to pick that. We're going to be using the tabs template, and then we're going to be using Vue as our language. I'm going to click continue. Then it's going to ask you to sign up and connect your app. I'm going to continue with BitBucket. I'm going to grant access. And now Ionic is starting to create our app and compile it. And once it's finished, and this will take a while, I will be right back. Okay, so our app was created and built successfully. And now you're taken to an overview dashboard. There's a lot of things you can see in here, like your commits, your builds. You can set up a deploy process and automate it. There's a CI/CD, and you can upgrade. They do offer a lot of features. So if you were to go all in on Ionic apps and start making them for clients or something like that, I'd recommend that you upgrade. Another thing we can do is go to preview. So we can click on this and you'll see this is the app right now. As it stands, we have our 3 tabs and you can go ahead and check those out. You can actually scan this barcode and view it on your own device. It'll open up in a browser. We can see what it would look like on an Android, on an iPad, and on an Android tablet. So if we go back now, you'll see that there's some commands we need to run before we pull the app down from our repo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a terminal, and I'll go ahead and pin this over here. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this first command right here and paste it in there. And since I am on a Mac, what I have to do is run sudo in front of this. I'm going to type in my password. And it's going to go ahead and start installing all that stuff. And once it's done installing, I will be right back. Okay, so everything installed successfully. And the next thing I'm going to do is clone my BitBucket repo. So I'm going to cd into my desktop. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to copy this URL or this git clone command, paste it in there, and it's going to go ahead and clone our project on the desktop. Then I'll go ahead and copy this other command right here. And this is going to take a minute because it's going to do an npm install. But once that's done, I will be right back. Okay, so our command finished successfully. And as you can see from the last command it runs in the terminal is Ionic serve. And that is what runs your app. So we see we have our app open here. And what I like to do is open the dev tools. So I'm going to click on F12. And it'll open my Chrome DevTools. And then if you go ahead and click this toggle device toolbar, you'll see that we have some options up here. Right now I have it responsive, but let's put it in iPhone 6, 7, and 8. And that's what our app would look like on an iPhone. And you can choose different devices here. So if I chose like a Pixel 2, this is what it would look like on a Pixel 2, Pixel 2 XL. all that good stuff. But for the most part, I keep it in iPhone 6, 7, and 8 since those are some of the most popular phones. And since we have our project running, let's go ahead and open it in Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to click on File, Open. I'm going to go to my desktop, click on Ionic Cocktail app, and open that folder. Now that we have it open, what I'm going to do is pin this over here. We'll go ahead and pin this over here, and I will make our browser window smaller because we only need to see about the size of a phone, and I'll make our code editor come over here. And that's it for project setup, and we're all ready to start coding. Now, the app that we're going to be creating will be very similar to the app that you see on the screen. We're going to have our 3 tabs, and all the functionality for the tabs is already completely wired up. This first tab is going to be a random drink, and when the user launches the app, that's the first thing they're going to see. Now, on here, we're going to do a pull to refresh, so every single time they pull down, it'll refresh and load another random cocktail on the screen. The next tab is going to be where they can search for a drink by the type of alcohol that you put into it or the ingredient. And the third tab is going to be just a blanket search functionality where they can type in something like margarita and get a list of drinks back that meet the search criteria that they typed in. Now, the way we're going to get drinks flowing into our application is by using TheCockTailDb. And this is a completely free API. You can support them on Patreon to unlock a few more endpoints, but for our needs, we can use it for completely free. And if we go to their API, we can see all we have to do is call these different endpoints. And we have one here for our random that we'll use for our first tab. We have one for search ingredient by name that we'll use for the second tab. And for our third tab, we'll just do the search cocktail by name. So let's go ahead and head back to the application. And the first thing I want to do is replace this tab icon right now. I'm going to make it a shuffle, and we're going to change the name to random. So what we're going to do is head to SRC, Views, and Tabs. And down here at the bottom, we see we have our icons. We're not going to need the triangle anymore. So what we're going to do is just import the shuffle. We'll go ahead and replace the shuffle in the setup. And then we'll come up here, find the icon of triangle, and replace it with shuffle. Now on this Ion label, we see we have tab 1, and all we're going to do is change that to random. Go ahead and save everything. And now you see that we have our shuffle icon and the text on that tab has been changed to random. And the next thing we're going to do is head over to tab 1. And this is what we're seeing on the screen right now. So what I'm going to do is head inside of this Ion content tag and just go ahead and remove everything. So we can go ahead and get rid of this Explorer container as well and remove it from the imports. We'll go ahead and save. And now we can see there is nothing in the tab. Now we're going to be using Vue 3. So at the top of our script tag, we need to import from Vue. And what we're going to be importing is reactive. And then inside of our export default, there is a new setup method. And this is where all of our code is going to live. Now, the first thing we need to do is set up our state. So I'm going to say const state equals reactive. And then we're going to pass it an object. And we're going to say random cocktail and set that to an empty object. And then we're going to set loading because we're going to display a loader when the page first loads. And we're going to set that to false. Now, in order to go out and grab our cocktails, we're going to need a package to make an AJAX request. And we're going to be using Axios. So I'm going to go up to the terminal, click New Terminal, and then I'm going to say npm install Axios. And once that's done installing, I will be right back. And Axios has installed successfully. So what we're going to do is head to the top of our script tag, and we're just going to import Axios from Axios. And then down in our setup, we're going to make a new method, and we're going to call it const fetch random cocktail. We're going to set that equal to an async function. And we're going to pass in display loader page and set that equal to a Boolean. And what this is going to do is only display our loader if the page is initialized for the first time, because when we pull to refresh, we still want to use this exact same function, but we don't want to show that full page loader that we show when the app first initializes. So we'll set this equal to an arrow function, and we're going to say if display loader page, then we're going to set state.loading equal to true. Below this, we're going to go ahead and make our call using Axios. So we're going to say const res equals awaits, Axios.get, and then we're going to head back to the TheCockTailDb, and I'm going to grab that random cocktail endpoint. I'll scroll down a little bit so we can see this better. And we'll go ahead and call that. Below that, we're going to say if res.data states.randomCocktail equals res.data. And then we're going to do a question mark. And what that'll do is it'll do some nullish coalescence to check to see if this data property is null. And if it is not, we'll say .drinks, and we'll pick the first drink out of the array. And then at the bottom here, we'll just set states.loading equals false. Then below this method, we're going to create another method. It's going to say const do refresh. We're going to set that equal to a function, and we'll pass in an event, which we'll say is a custom event. And we'll set that equal to an arrow function. And we're just going to say fetch random cocktail and pass it false. And then below that, we're going to event.target. We're going to check that it's not null, and then we'll say complete. Now, right now, there is a TypeScript bug. It doesn't think that there is a method called complete off of the target. So we're just going to add in a comment above this with @ts-ignore. And we can see by adding that, we did get rid of our error on the complete method, but now we're getting a new error on this ts-ignore because our ESLint file is discouraging us from using this or throwing an error. So let me scroll up a little bit here, because what we're going to do to fix this is click on this light bulb, and then we're going to click on disabled it for this line, and now we are good to go. The next thing we need to do is call our fetch random cocktail method when the page loads. So we're just going to, underneath this, call fetch random cocktail and pass it true because we want it to display the loader, the full page loader, when we initialize the app. And you can think of this as like the created method in Vue 2. And then the last thing we need to do is return all of this. So we'll return states, fetch random cocktail, and do refresh. And it looks like I forgot my I here. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F to format everything, and then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now that we have that all set up, we can start on our template. So we'll scroll up here. And the first thing we'll do is I'm going to copy this Ion content and paste it above so we can work on our loader functionality. Now in here, we're going to have a div, and I'm going to give it a class of loading center. And we're going to make this class here in a second. The next thing we're going to do is an Ion spinner. And we're going to give it a color equal to primary. Now on this Ion content, we're only going to show this. So we'll do a if our content is loading. So we'll say states.loading. And then I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and at the bottom underneath our script tag, I'm going to do a style. We're going to do loading center, and we'll give it a display equal to flex. Align items equal to center, justify content equal to center, and a height equal to 90 VH. For the spinner, I want to make it a little bit larger than it is, so I'm going to say Ion spinner, and we're going to say transform, scale 1.5. Then we'll scroll back to the top. And for this Ion content, we're just going to say velse. So if the state is not loading, then this will show. In here, we're going to do an Ion refresher. We're going to give it a slot equal to fixed. And at Ion refresh equal to do refresh. And we'll go ahead and close that. And inside of there, we will do an Ion refresher content. Below our Ion refresher, we're going to do an Ion card. Inside of our card, we'll do an image, and we're going to give it a source, which we're going to be binding to. I'll go ahead and get rid of these two properties. We're going to give it a source of state.randomcocktail.str drink thumb. Then below that, we're going to do an Ion card subtitle. And inside of this, we'll do some text interpolation, and we'll say state.randomcocktail.str category. Then we'll give it a pipe, and we'll say served in. We'll do some more text interpolation, state.randomcocktail.str glass. I'm going to hit Alt-Shift-F2 format everything. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is hit save so we can see what we've got already. So we can see that we have our image and then the card subtitle. Now to give this some better styling, we're going to wrap our subtitle in an Ion card header. So we'll go ahead and take this closing tag and put it right below our subtitle and give it a new line. And I'm going to go ahead and save again. And now we see we have it in a little better formatting. Right below our card subtitle, we're going to do an Ion card title. And inside of this, we're going to display the drink name. So we're going to say state.randomcocktail.str drink. Save that, and we see now we have the name of our drink. Next, outside of the Ion card header, we're going to do an Ion card content. And inside of here is where we will display the ingredients of our drink and the instructions for it. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a paragraph tag, and we'll do some text interpolation, and we'll say states.randomcocktail.str instructions. And we'll go ahead and save that so we can see them on the screen. And now we see that we have the instructions for this drink. Now our drink ingredients are going to be in a list. So below this paragraph tag, we're going to do an Ion list header. And inside of that, we're just going to say ingredients. So now we see we have that on the screen. Now our ingredients and our measurements are going to be in a list, but if we go ahead and take a look at what is returned from the API, you'll see that it returns up to 15 ingredients and 15 measurements, but they can be null. It's not just returning the ingredients that exist. So we're going to have to account for this in the code. Now to display these, we're going to create an Ion list. So below this Ion list header, we'll say Ion list. Inside of our Ion list, we're going to have an Ion item. And we're going to say vif state.randomcocktail.str ingredient 1. Then we'll go ahead and display the ingredient. So we'll do an Ion label. And inside of this label, we're going to do a span. And the reason we're doing a span is because sometimes the measurements are not listed, but ingredients are. So we're going to say vif state.randomcocktail.str measure 1. Then we're going to do some text interpolation, say state.randomcocktail.str measure 1. And then we're going to do a pipe. And outside of this span, we'll do some more text interpolation, and we'll say state
.randomcocktail.str ingredient1. And what we'll do is go ahead and save that, and we'll come back over and look at our Ion list item to make sure it looks correctly, because we're going to have to replicate this functionality for 15 different ingredients. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and copy this Ion item and go ahead and paste it in 15 times and increment the counter on each one for each 15 items. And I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video so you don't have to sit here and watch me type this out 15 different times. Okay, so now that I got through all 15 ingredients, we can go ahead and take a look at our app. And you see that we have some ingredients down here. This one only has 3, but it is showing multiple ingredients. And if we come up to the top and we pull down, you'll see that we have our refresh, our image changes, and all the ingredients change. And you'll see here where I meant that some of them don't have measurements. This is just calling for coffee and cinnamon. We'll go ahead and pull down again. And we see that everything's looking really good. Our app is refreshing nicely. We have our image, we have our drink category, what glass it's served in, the name of our drink, the instructions for it, our ingredients, and everything is looking really good. So that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for part 1. In part 2, we're going to be implementing our search by ingredient page and functionality. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and enable notifications so you'll be notified when that video comes out. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this video, make sure to drop a line in the comment section below. And until next time, happy coding.